Could the classic Boone June swoon finally be gone and the Yankees might fly high in July? A two-game winning streak for the Yankees and the tides might potentially be turning. Justin Chevalella, Dylan Price, the Bomber Boys podcast. We are back for yet another episode. I'm in State College. Dylan's in Monticello. Dylan, how you doing?
Doing well, Justin. Happy to be with you. I will be with you in State College in T-minus 24 or so whenever somebody's watching to this. Maybe I'll already be in State College when somebody's watching it, and we will be together again, even though it feels like I just saw you a couple weeks ago and did just see you a couple weeks ago. But regardless, excited to head back out to State this weekend, and obviously you're already out there.
Yep, got out here earlier. Nice smooth ride. Woke up bright and early because we all know New York traffic very well, and I just didn't want to get stuck in it. I'd rather waste my time here than do it in traffic. So early wake up, early ride in. Shortest ride I've ever had to State College. Right now I'm alone, but you guys all come in over the next couple of hours throughout the weekend. But plenty to talk about. Since I got to State College, there's been tons of news for the New York Yankees. And, you know, you'd love to start on the two-game winning streak. You take the final game against the Mets over the weekend, have a day off, take the first game against Seattle. But that is not where we can start. The big news for New York, DJ LeMahieu has played his last song. He was DFA'd this afternoon. It was kind of written in the stars the last couple of days that LeMahieu's time with the Yankees would be coming to an end. You see it on the bottom of your screen. 7 years with the Yankees, finished with a 278 average, 351 on base percentage, 412 slugging, finished top 5 in MVP voting twice, and an AL batting champion in 2020 during that shortened COVID year. Provided some great memories, some great moments for the Yankees over his tenure. But obviously the last couple of seasons have been a massive struggle for the infielder, the former guy that played first, second, third, probably could have played short if you needed him to. But DJ LeMahieu, because of his age now at 36 and struggling in the field, the Yankees felt it was best to move on. They DFA him. Dylan, your first reaction?
There was a case you made last week and that we talked about a little bit that, first off, you could have him be the bench bat because it, as you said perfectly, was written in the stars. You could have him be the bench bat whenever they eventually and finally, 2 weeks too late, made the decision to move Jazz Chisholm to second base and play Oswald Peraza at third. For now, you'll hear that a lot throughout the course of tonight's episode. But I think the thing with DJ has been from the start that, you have a very productive start, I think, to his season, obviously a later start than everybody else due to injury, and productive in the kind of conversation of when everybody was slumping. DJ actually was one of the more consistent bats, and you see it on the ticker right there. 278 over a 7-year career. He kind of was consistently consistent. He wasn't lighting the world on fire outside of the COVID year and kind of the year that followed that and the big contract that Cashman gave him, but he was just consistently there. He missed some games the last 3 years, but he was always, for the most part, above the Mendoza line. He was always semi-reliable in the infield at regardless wherever you put him, first, third, wherever you put him, second. But the reality has become this year that with the strength that Jazz Chisholm is in the lineup and really the liability he was in making those throws from third, to keep him in the lineup, put him at second, and open up the void at third that seems easier to fill at the trade deadline, I think made the most sense in the world. And at that point, it made sense, like we said last week, move DJ to the bench. I said he could be kind of the Matt Carpenter type for this team. Put him in, give a guy a day off, get that veteran pop. He's on the last legs of his career regardless. Get that kind of last juice out of DJ because he wasn't playing too bad. But at the same time, we've talked about there's guys who get stuck in the Scranton purgatory. Jorbit Vivas, who got called up today in the corresponding move. Oswald Peraza, who has now found himself a role, and he's going to have to dazzle in the next
It won't be long.
week. Or, yes, it won't be long that he will find himself with that role. But there's young guys who could be that bat instead. Give one of them a shot to kind of succeed instead, because we've seen all we need to see with DJ LeMahieu. I'm tipping the cap to him. He was a great Yankee for 7 years. Again, Mr. Consistency. But the past couple years, injuries and kind of clearly losing a step has derailed the end of DJ's tenure in the Pinstripes.
Yeah, I'll start there with I think every Yankee fan should not remember DJ for the last couple of seasons. I mean, 2023 played 136 games, batted just 243. Last year played just 67 games, batted 204, and then this season plays 45 and hits 266. We should all remember DJ for what he did, when he was, not injury prone before they started to catch up to him and, kind of before he signed that second contract, even the first couple of years of that second contract with the Yankees. You think about that massive home run against the Astros in the playoffs back years ago. You think about that stuff. That's what we should be remembering DJ LeMahieu's tenure with the Yankees for. This isn't one of the situations like an Aaron Hicks or Joey Gallo. This is a completely different situation, and DJ LeMahieu provided plenty for the New York Yankees throughout his tenure. Now, that being said, I'm a little against this move at this particular time. It's the right move. Don't get me wrong. It's the right move, but it's the wrong time. And here's why. First of all, DJ LeMahieu, since June 1st, he's batting .310, 27 hits and 87 at-bats. Oswald Peraza and Jorbit Vivas have 28 combined hits all season long in 179 at-bats. I believe that averages out to a 150-something batting average between the two of them. And we've seen that Oswald Peraza, can't really get much going throughout his career. He's a 194 career hitter to this point. And I bring that up because the Yankees have forever been a team that prides itself on offense. This isn't a team that has really cared about defense for years. Heck, just think about it. Their defensive shortstop stud in Anthony Volpe, who has been anything but a stud, is trying to hit home runs. They want the runs. They want the offense time in and time out. So it was a curious decision to get rid of LeMahieu, and I understand it, that DJ can't play third anymore, that Jazz Chisholm's the second baseman as he should be. But why? DJ's still a good bat for the next couple of weeks until the deadline, and he could be serviceable off the bench. And I get it. Aaron Boone yesterday said something about how DJ LeMahieu didn't really take it well being called a bench bat. Yeah, it's the majors. You want to be a starter. I completely understand that. But what's the harm in another week or two, especially with the All-Star break coming up, on keeping a guy that's batting .310 over his last, month plus? What's the harm in keeping him a couple of extra weeks? This way, just in case Jazz Chisholm's shoulder injury, because we found out this week that he's been playing through a shoulder injury and playing third instead of second. What if that turns out to be serious and now you don't have an actual second baseman because Peraza and Vivas can't be in the lineup every day because they can't hit? I think about stuff like that when I think about this move. It's clear as day that DJ LeMahieu in the next couple of weeks would have been replaced by somebody, and Peraza and Vivas are going to be replaced by someone as well, or at least it seems like they're going to be. I just don't like the timing of this move. And I understand there was pressure coming from the fans. There was probably pressure coming from people within the organization to just get rid of DJ LeMahieu. But at the end of the day, you are putting yourself, and Brian Cashman said today that they didn't want to put themselves in a bind if they had to pinch, hit for Peraza and they needed a third baseman. They didn't want to put themselves in a bind to move Chisholm over. And I understand that. But at the same time, now you're putting yourself in a bind if, and we obviously hope there's no long-term injury to anyone here on the Yankees or really anyone in general. But if something like that were to happen, you're screwed for the long run. And that's how I'm looking at this move. And I understand the writing was on the wall. It's been on the wall. This is a topic we've talked about, I think, every week we've done this show since we started up the virtual version of it. But, I mean, I think it's the right move, but I seriously do think it's the wrong time, and you should have waited until you firmly had somebody ready to go in the wings, whether that be via trade or signing someone.
So first off, if you do notice the pump of the fist or any emotions, and Justin's the same. We are recording this later than we've recorded any of these other episodes yet. So the game is going on right now. It's 3-0 Yankees. So that's a good start for Schlittler. Very, very nice run so far continues for Belly, and Giancarlo had an RBI single as well. So things are looking good right now at the dish. But back to your point, because if you couldn't tell by my facial reactions, I was not agreeing with what you were saying. I think
good. I like a little argument. We've been on too much of the same page lately.
Well, I've been seeing your Twitter. I'm seeing you peddle this agenda right now. Like all of a sudden, you're DJ's savior when you were ready to
Whoa,
pack his
whoa,
bag.
wait. Don't say all of a
Straight
sudden,
week
because
ago.
no. 2 weeks ago, we had
You
this
were ready to
conversation.
drive restrain yourself, Justin.
No. We had the conversation, is DJ the problem? And I said, no, DJ's not the problem, the way the Yankees are utilizing him is, and that he could still be something in some capacity for the Yankees. I have not been on the train of every other Yankee fan that's been calling for him to be off the team.
Well, all of a sudden, you've been posting this narrative over.
I'll pull up the video, and I'll post it and tag you and at you.
Wells, nope, never mind. Sorry, I got excited for a second.
You're ahead of me. Please stop.
Apparently, my Amazon Prime's ahead of MLB TV right now. But anyways, I think the thing that you kind of say with that is you said no, but you said it facetiously because you would be ready to pack DJ's bags for him and get him out the door. But the one thing that I'm going to say that you are a hypocrite on is that both of us have said for years now, for back com radio and in this virtual version last summer and this summer,
I know where you're going.
Our biggest pet peeve with this team is that guys like Peraza and Vivas get stuck in the Scranton shuttle or get stuck in the Scranton purgatory, as I've proclaimed it. So you can't say, well, DJ's out.
Peraza's gotten his chances this year. Peraza's gotten his chances this year, and he's at the point where he's just short. He's just
every day at bats.
Okay, you're saying Vivas, but the Yankees don't have plans to put Vivas in much. They already have said that it's Peraza's third base.
So Vivas can get the day every here and then.
He's gonna be stuck on the bench just like Peraza was, and in a year we're gonna be having the same conversation about Vivas as we are with Peraza.
You just made my point perfectly about Peraza. Peraza's been riding the pine and getting at bats every 3 days, 4 days. You're not going to establish
this year. He's got a consistent time.
But you're not going to get any consistency in that regard. I'd rather see him play every day at Scranton, which neither of us would like to see because we want to see him get his crack at majors. This is his chance. This is a 2-week sample size before the deadline, before they go out and add an infielder. And this is his chance. He would, again, as we said in the open, he would have to dazzle and light the world on fire in the next 2 weeks to keep his spot at third base. It's pretty much a 10% chance, less than that happens. But at least they're giving him his fair shake. Because the other reason that I think that I didn't agree with what you were saying is that clearly DJ was not thrilled. And DJ was willing to try to play third, but he's not fit to play third, just like Jazz wasn't fit to play third at this point. And it just made the most sense that Peraza played really well defensively last night. Peraza can play the corner. He'll be fine. And you know what? If he goes 1 for 4 every game, 0 for 4 the rest of the way, again, at least he's getting this run and you see what you have in him. And he probably gets shipped off for a reliever with Vivas at some point anyways. But the way it stands right now with Oswaldo on the IL, with DJ gone, this is the best shot Oswald Peraza's had. So as much as I agree with the gist of the point you were making about, maybe you wait a little bit longer, I disagree because our biggest pet peeve for so long has been we're not giving any extended sample size for these guys. And if we are, it's every couple days over a 10-month span, or you get what I'm saying. Over an extended span, you're giving them at bats every couple days. You're getting me riled up.
I mean, to come back on that point, you could still get Peraza those extended reps with DJ just sitting on the bench being ready. Jazz is going to need days off. Peraza is going to need days off.
I'm only want DJ to find another place to play.
We're talking about another week or two. Oh, DJ can find another place to play. Then why didn't you package him? Maybe with a prospect and gotten something in return.
I don't think that's something that's.
I don't. $7 million left this year, $15 million next year, $22 million left on DJ LeMahieu's contract. At the end of it, a solid Yankee career. He didn't take it great necessarily, like we talked about. This the end of his 6-year, $90 million contract, and it's a chance for Peraza for the next 5 games before the All-Star break to maybe catch lightning in a bottle. And I don't know if you were listening to last night's game or watching last night's game rather, but Paul O'Neill diagnosed every single one of Oswald Peraza's problems on the broadcast last night. He took us through. It was after one of the strikeouts Peraza had. He took us through the at-bat, and he talked about how Peraza wasn't seeing the ball, how he was moving his head too quick. Then Paul O'Neill better get down into the Yankee tunnel or onto the batting practice field and get these things going, because we have watched Oswald Peraza week in and week out, game in and game out, do the same thing, and nobody's fixed it. And that's just a side note. I just want to give Paul O'Neill his credit. He's back in the booth lately, and he's killing it. But it's something to note that he kind of fixed some of the problems. He didn't fix them, but he definitely at least had something to say about them and noticed kind of what was going on. And Paul Neal was a pretty damn good hitter in his time with the Yankees. I mean, the obvious conversation here isn't really about DJ or Oswald or really Jorbit. It's about who's coming in. There's no way that Jorbit and Oswald Peraza are the Yankees, third baseman for the playoffs. That is, I think, almost written. Again, I keep saying it. I don't know why it's stuck in my head today, but written in the stars. Like, that one is down in stone, and it's going to happen. Brian Cashman said, I'm definitely going to be looking for upgrades. We're going to try to be active for third base and pitching. You signed two guys last week, Jeimer Candelario and Nicky Lopez, with MLB experience, but he also said those guys are just kind of depth in AAA for a while. So the deadline's, the end of the month. You got the All-Star break coming up. I personally think the Yankees should have their third baseman figured out before the end of the All-Star break next week. I think you give Oswald his 5 games, you give, Vivas a couple and see what happens. The good news is you could extend it because the rest of the lineup is starting to hit. And we'll talk about that in a little while. But I think you at least have to have your plans, whoever you're going to target. Eugenio Suarez has been the big name. He's got 28 home runs right now. I think that's what everyone's kind of targeting for the Yankees would be Suarez. But, I mean, you're also waiting still to see what teams are going to sell and what teams are going to buy at the deadline and what teams might stand pat. There's some teams out there that people are going to be surprised are going to end up selling. I think the Atlanta Braves, the Baltimore Orioles, who probably wouldn't sell to the New York Yankees, and it's a lot of young talent there. But there's some good teams that are going to have some good players available. I think Eugenio Suarez at the moment is probably top leaderboard for both of us.
I think so. I mean, there was a report that there's a lot of interest from the Yankees in that regard. And I think Jazz moving to second kind of starts to signal that the Yankees, if they do add an infielder, as Cashman alluded to, it's going to be a third baseman. It's going to be at the corner. And I kind of agree with you. I think these 5 games and then even out of the All-Star break, because I think they will let it ride out of the All-Star break, is going to be pivotal to, whether or not Peraza or Vivas can even, honestly, they're still playing for a backup infielder spot as well, because if Vivas lights the world on fire and Peraza can't hit anything and can't change those kind of things that O'Neill was diagnosing, he's not going to be on the roster. They'll go with Vivas. I don't think there's that long of a leash with Peraza at this point. Plus, one of them could get traded. That's, again, why I think the sample size right now makes a lot of sense. So I think that Eugenio Suarez has been the top choice. I think he's everybody's kind of projection to the Yankees right now. I think then it's the same name again in Ryan McMahon, and it's the same kind of guys we're going to go through next week. But I think the nice part about next week for you and I particularly is outside of the All-Star game, we're going to have this next 5 games. As I said last week, this is the diagnosis period for teams. I mean, even the Yankees, to figure out guys that they might part with that are on the major league roster, and then guys down in AAA who could be expendable as well, and kind of where you're going to really need to fill holes. But every other team outside of the Dodgers, Mets, and the teams that, project to be at the top of their respective divisions, Cubs, whatever, and Tigers, you are in a period right now where you're figuring out who you're selling if you're in that middle tier or bottom tier, and you're figuring out exactly how much you're going to be selling. So right now, Eugenio Suarez, Ryan McMahon, those are the names we're hearing the most, but the names that you're not even thinking of are going to start to become a lot clearer in the next week and a half, really, until we're together again, because I think there's a very, very real chance that there's guys that aren't even on the radar right now that could end up being dealt. I mean, not a lot of people had Jazz Chisholm completely linked to the Yankees at this time a year ago, and he ended up being the guy when we thought it could be McMahon. So who's that guy this year? We don't fully know. There's no random source coming in either of our ears right now telling us who that third baseman could be, but it's going to be somebody. I think that it'd be asinine of Cashman to sit here on his hands at the deadline. He said he's waiting for the market to develop, and I don't always put a lot of stock in what Cashman says. Right now, he's waiting for the market to develop, and I think he's being pretty transparent about that they're going to make moves, and they have to. I don't necessarily think a starter, not to kind of segue into our next point, but I don't think a starter necessarily needs to be at the top of the list, but relievers and a third baseman, you needed them yesterday.
Well, I think the simple matter of fact here for Brian Cashman is that the pressure is on at the deadline. You went to the World Series last year. You just went through the classic Boone June swoon, probably worse than it was last year. You're one of a handful of teams that's lost 6 games in a row twice this season, joining the A's, Braves, White Sox, Royals, Nationals, and Rockies. Not really a group that you want to be, kind of in with when you think about losing streaks. And the Yankees have 2 of 6 plus this year. Now, the Dodgers, now you look at them and you kind of go, okay, good teams do struggle because right now they've lost 6 straight as well. And that probably is a little bit of a breathing point for the Yankees. But at the end of the day, I think you don't wait if you're Brian Cashman for the market to develop. You develop that market, set the standard, because if you wait too long, the Detroit Tigers, who are trying to make a push in a relatively weak American League, they will go set the market themselves. They will go get that top guy out there, or one of the AL East teams that we'll get into in a little bit, because the AL East is becoming more competitive. The Rays, who barely move, maybe they try to move something. The Red Sox are starting to heat up. Those teams could be in the market. You should go develop the market yourself. Do not wait for the market to develop and try to attack late. But I think the pressure's on. What we heard today is that DJ LeMahieu told the Yankee organization back in the winter that he probably couldn't be playing third base. And the Yankees didn't go attack, so now they have to. And we'll get into the relievers in a little bit. But first, we go to the Yankees' newest arm, the guy on the mound tonight who's done well through his first 2 innings, and that's Cam Schlittler, the young, hard-throwing right-hander, replaces Clark Schmidt. We'll have that conversation in a second, too, about what happened with Clark. He needs Tommy John surgery, but we put the focus on the pinstripe promotion for Cam Schlittler. 15 appearances, 14 starts between double and triple A this year. He's 6-6, a 2.82 ERA, 76 2/3 innings pitched. And the most impressive part is not going across your screen right now. That is the 99 strikeouts to 26 walks that Cam Schlittler has put together throughout his 15 appearances in the minors to this point. It was a fast track up. Maybe some concern. We don't know how long he's here for either. Positive news on Luis Gil that we'll touch on in a second. But early indication, first of all, what we saw in spring training, saw in the minors, and what we've seen through the first inning tonight is that Cam Schlittler's got a pretty darn good career coming his way.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're excited about. And Volpe just narrowly missed you going yard. Sorry again, I'm ahead of you. But I think that that's something that kind of was getting. Are you kidding me? Volpe just got thrown out at second. I lost my whole point. This kid can't.
Wow.
Right now.
Oh, we'll talk about him furthermore in a second. But you were talking about Cam Schlittler.
I got my live reaction to watching him get gunned down from right field. But listen, Schlittler is a talented prospect. The guy who was a 7th rounder in the organization, Massachusetts kid, has kind of developed, been completely a Sam Breen, pitcher development project, and somebody who, it didn't sound like from Cashman's words today that he's a long-term part of this rotation's plans. But in this season, let me rather say that in the long-term plans, if he goes out there and shoves today and he does well, when you come out of the All-Star break, maybe you don't need to go out and grab a starter, because Schlittler can kind of play that role, especially because we wouldn't necessarily have a Will Warren situation. Even though it's 76 2/3 across both levels this season, that's going to pale in comparison to what everybody else on the major league rotation has spun to this point, heading into the back end of the season. So for Schlittler, he could be a really valuable tool. And if he goes out and spins a gem tonight and he's already through 2 clean innings, this could be a really important audition for Schlittler. In the long term, this is still a 24-year-old or 23-year-old prospect who figures to be a big piece of this team's plans in the future, whether as a trade market kind of guy or as the eventual starter who kind of slots in as this rotation likely gets reshuffled in the offseason due to all the injuries this season. So I like Schlittler a lot. I mean, he's a hard thrower. I saw the comparison the other day of Joe Johnson, that he's kind of that same makeup, even to the high socks and kind of overarching delivery. I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a big piece of the Yankees plans, whether he's in pinstripes or not in the future. But given the first 2 innings sample size in the Bronx tonight, I hope he's a Yankee in the future.
He's got a heavy 4-seam that we've already seen touch 100 miles per hour today. Normally sits 96, 97. A slider, curveball, sweeper. He did work a little bit on a changeup, but it seems like he's abandoned that pitch and just going a 4-pitch repertoire. I mean, the matter of fact is everything you hear about Cam Schlittler from, the organization and what's been put out is that this guy, first of all, he's loose on his days off. That's one of the things that I think the Yankees need more of. I think that sometimes we think of them too buttoned up. I mean, until this year, you couldn't have facial hair. I'm taking advantage of that policy, if you couldn't tell, and so are you. But, I mean, the other thing is when he locks in on game day, they say he's a different breed. And that goes back to spring training. And recall, that's just spring training. It doesn't matter for your career stats. And he wasn't going to make the team out of, camp. It was pretty much set. He had one appearance in AAA last season. So he fast tracks this year. He starts in AA, gets called up to AAA, now to the majors. And I think he's going to be fun. And you keep saying he's going to be part of the Yankee plans, whether that be a trade piece or whether that be in the rotation. I'd love for them to stick with some homegrown talent in their rotation for once. And LeMahieu and Clark Schmidt have kind of changed that narrative lately. But you look at the other fact of Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Max Fried. I mean, heck, Ryan Yarbrough is a starter this year. He's not from this organization, didn't come up in it. The Yankees haven't had a solid pitching prospect like this in years. I saw somebody tweet that out, and you think back, like, who really is the last pitcher that you thought of this highly? And, the name Davy Garcia comes to mind, and even still, there were still question marks. This guy is so highly thought of in Cam Schlittler that you want him to succeed, and you want him to succeed in pinstripes. And you have to think well beyond this season. You think to next year. Clark Schmidt's gone the entire year. Somebody's probably, and you don't want it to happen, but somebody's going to get injured. It's bound to happen. Now, LeMahieu complicates things because he'll be back and Garrett Cole will be back, but there's a place in pinstripes in the future for Cam Schlittler, and I think we should all be excited about it. Again, good returns so far. Again, small sample size so far. But we also have to talk about what led Cam Schlittler to be called up, and that's Clark Schmidt. The Yankees now, over their last 20 days, have watched Ryan Yarbrough, Yerry De Los Santos, Fernando Cruz, Clark Schmidt, and Mark Leiter Jr. be placed on the IL. Not good. We talked about this last week, but I'm only going to point out Clark Schmidt here because he's the corresponding move when you really think of Schlittler. Clark Schmidt had said that his arm had been bothering him for a couple of weeks, and the Yankees left him out there to dry and left him out there to pitch through it. And maybe he didn't report fully on how much it was, bothering him. He did say that it just felt like soreness you feel throughout the season. And then he goes and he pitches 3 innings last week in Toronto when you really needed him to pitch more too, because of Will Warren getting blown up the night that we recorded last week's show. The simple matter of fact is there's something going on with this medical staff, and we can't diagnose problems here, but it's very concerning when you hear Jazz Chisholm Jr. has been battling a sore shoulder for a while, and they had him at third base, his not natural position, with the longest throw across to first. And Clark Schmidt had been dealing with some soreness as well, and he's still out there to throw. I don't understand what's going on there. I think that needs to be looked at, but it's concerning. And you wonder, and you hate to be this guy, but you always have to think, is there other players right now going through some soreness or going through something, and this could pop up later in the year that, I won't say a name because I'm not trying to wish, some bad luck, but the next thing you know, that person could be gone all year too because his arm had been hurting and he ends up with bigger problem. Even Mark Leiter. Mark Leiter got hurt he felt a pop back in Cincinnati, and I believe he pitched 4 more times after that. To me, it's rather concerning.
There was a clip going on around on Yankees Twitter right after that. They said that there was the pop that was felt. And that's the issue that I have, because you and I are sitting in here, you in State College, me in Monticello, New York. We're not there. We can't be in the dugout and tell you how everybody's feeling on 1 to 10 on that little pain chart that they used to put in the doctor's office for you. But we can say that when there's smoke, there's fire. And when you have players going to the media, you have Jazz saying, oh, my shoulder hurts. You have Clark saying that there was some tightness beforehand. You have Leiter saying, oh, there was a pop 4 games before that. and four outings before that, rather, for him. You
And
have
he struggled in the 4 he pitched in. He allowed 5 runs, 4 earned in
And
2 and a
right
third.
after that, yeah, I mean, I'm going to put my foot in my mouth here in a second, given the fact that he's been on fire as of late. But Austin Wells coming back from this circulatory issue in his finger, where he said in a very gruesome manner, oh, really, the only reason he knows if it's really bothering him is if it's like purple, and then struggling to grip the bat and having a couple really, really poor plate appearances in the games that would follow from injury up until this most recent stretch. He didn't look like himself. And there's stories on stories of this from this season that we can kind of pinpoint, little nuanced comments that I think have a little bit more meaning to them. And ultimately, it is a 162 game season. And if you're the New York Yankees and the expectation is that you play beyond those 162 games, I get the June swoon. It sucks. It's given us fodder for the past 3 weeks, maybe longer, but it sucks. But at the same time, nobody's going to remember the June swoon, just like they didn't last year, if you are winning a pennant in October and maybe, just maybe, winning a World Series. This team needs to stop playing every damn day like it's their World Series, and actually should have played the World Series like it was their World Series, and stop playing in June and July like every single guy has a long-lasting shelf life, because now you're playing with fire, and obviously Clark Schmidt is hurt. Luis Gil was hurt. Garrett Cole, we said it back in Penn State that there seemed like something was off. Like it was just inevitable that there was going to be some diagnosis with Cole. And it felt like they kind of pushed him beyond his means in the postseason and got him to the brink of this. It feels like there has been a consistent mismanagement of guys and their health. And again, Monticello, New York, State College. We can't tell you that for guarantee, but when your players, your own players, are going to the media and saying, felt tightness, felt a pop, felt an issue, that is very, very, very worrisome and makes you start to think, who else in the clubhouse is dealing with similar circumstances that we don't know about? Is that why some of these slumps are justified? We don't know. We're not going to sit here and hypothesize, but again, where there's smoke, there's fire, and this seems to be a consistent thing for the New York Yankees medical staff.
It's rather concerning, and it's rather unfortunate that we have this conversation. You could point back to a couple guys last year, too, that we talked about with this whole situation. I was going to bring the whole Garrett Cole thing back to light because you and I had kind of almost diagnosed that problem when Max Fried signed. We kind of said, it's good, you're bolstering your rotation, but there's something more behind this. And sure enough, a couple months later, doesn't get too far into his spring training routine, and sure enough, he's gone. But talking about the pitching staff, we just talked about the trade deadline in terms of a bat. I mean, the one guy that will be coming around the deadline, unless something goes wrong, is Luis Gil. He threw 42 pitches in a bullpen yesterday. He commences his rehab assignment over the weekend. I believe it's on Sunday at the moment, is what Aaron Boone said. He's an exciting arm to get back. They said he's going to work up to being a starting pitcher, would take the spot of Cam Schlittler, who, for those of you wanting to know just about what time it is, he did just allow a solo home run to J.P. Crawford in the top of the third to make it 3-1. But, Luis Gil, the Yankees need more than that. They need some bullpen arms, especially with all these injuries piling up. And I want to take you through the last couple of deadlines. You go back to last year, the Yankees picked up Mark Leiter Jr. and Enyel De Los Santos. Leiter made 21 appearances to the tune of a 4.98 ERA after joining the Yankees last year. De Los Santos, 5 appearances and then DFA'd. Go the year before, Kenyon Middleton came over. 12 appearances, a 1.88 ERA and 14 and a third. But then he missed most of September with an injury. Oh, by the way, he hasn't pitched in the MLB since that year. The year before, Scott Efris and Lou Trevino. Well, Efris pitched 13 games. He got injured down the stretch. Lou Trevino, 7 games pitched for the Yankees. Now, he was injured when they traded for him, and they knew he would be kind of that late add to the bullpen. The year before, Clay Holmes, we all know what Clay Holmes became, and Joely Rodriguez. That was the last time I'd say the Yankees had success with relievers at the trade deadline. But it's concerning that the Yankees have to go attack a position where they've, quite honestly, been unsuccessful when it comes to, giving up prospects. They've been fine signing Michael Tonkin and Tim Hill off the, free agency and turning these guys into productive pitchers. However, when it comes to the point of, hey, we're giving up a prospect or we're giving up somebody for you, the Yankees have struggled, and they really need to hit the nail on the head this year because, I mean, the AL is wide open. I think the last couple of weeks we've hit the panic button, and panic meter's coming up here in a couple minutes, and we'll hit it again. Maybe not as much as we did last week, but, we've hit the panic meter with how bad the Yankees were. The AL is still wide open. It's relatively weak. It's going to be, anyone's game. The Yankees need to go, in my opinion, go get two arms, and they need to be high-profile arms that are actually going to perform this year.
I think that's the key. You said it right there at the end. High profile, established arms, guys who aren't just flash in the pan having a good season, or guys that Matt Blake's looking at with a 4.7 ERA and saying, I can fix him. Matt Blake really is a wizard, it seems like, in terms of developing pitchers, but sometimes he feels like he's just the girl that can't give up on the guy who's clearly a red flag, because some of these pitchers he picks are 5.81 ERA out of the bargain bin. I know it. He's good. He'll be fine. I got this. And Matt Blake is borderline a magician, but he's not a miracle worker. And so some of these guys that they've picked out of the bargain bin in the past couple of years, Blake hasn't been able to work his magic on, and they've still worked out in some of them in other places. That's inevitable. It's baseball, Susan. But the thing that I think is funny about this deadline is that you almost need, and I said this, I think, last week, you almost need a David Robertson, Tommy Kahnle-esque deadline here where you get two guys who are reliable, you know what they bring to the table, and that they can kind of slot right in and be back end of the relief or back end of the bullpen arms, because you still have Devin Williams and you still have Weaver if he's healthy. By the way, another guy who clearly doesn't seem like he's over an injury, but
they rushed him back. It was supposed to be a 4 to 6 week injury, and he's back in 10 days.
Yeah, so I think that it's very clear there's a void, and it needs to be guys. I think Duran's been a guy who's been floated. Bird was a guy who was floated. Guys who could be kind of in that same conversation of pretty established arms, not just flash in the pan arms that could come in here and make an immediate impact. It's needed. I think there's a lot of good that this bullpen has produced in the past couple seasons. Again, Blake's done a great job. But you need to go out here and you need those kind of the trade deadlines where you got Andrew Miller, or kind of the trade deadline where you make a move and you go out and get a Zach Britton. I know that. Remember that one from years ago. Those kind of moves that at the time the rich got richer because the back end of the bullpen was nails for the Yanks. You need one of those kind of moves right now. Two of them really would be great.
It can't be Jeff Hartley again. That's for sure.
Poor
guy.
He's fan base, and he barely did anything wrong other than supposed to be the mop-up guy last night and gave up 3 runs. And now
De Los Santos, who was having a career year, last pitched June 18th with an injury. He was that mop-up guy. You expect maybe to have him back. There's not many timetables being given on a lot of the Yankees that have been hurt, which is, in my opinion, even more concerning as we talk about all the injury mess with the Yankees. But, I mean, you got to get some. Ryan Yarbrough should come back at some point. Again, no timetable. He'll probably slot to the bullpen if Heal's going to the rotation to take the spot of Cam Schlittler. I mean, that whole scenario, it's got to play out, but you mentioned some good names. And one of those names you mentioned is David Robertson, who's actually a free agent right now. He's not represented by an agent. So, hey, maybe just call him directly. They've had him for multiple stints. Why not sign him? I mean, he's a little bit on the older side, but he produced last year. I'm trying to pull up his numbers real quick, but from what I can remember, I mean, almost every year in his career, he has been a reliable arm. Last year, he was with Texas, 68 games to a 2.65 ERA, or rather a 3 ERA. That's pretty dang impressive, if you ask me, as we have another fist pump from Dylan Price as Jazz goes deep here. We'll talk about Jazz and maybe a little home run derby appearance in a second. Jazz is hot, but that brings up who's hot, who's not. We didn't include Jazz. We didn't include Cody Bellinger because it feels like we continue to talk about them. We didn't talk about Aaron Judge. I don't think we had mentioned his name until now. But I mean, there's
mentioned a lot for a Yankees show, given that he's intentionally walked like every other at bat.
He was earlier, wasn't he? I caught out of the corner of my eye. But these two guys we point out because last week we were talking about the opposite end of the spectrum, more so with Austin Wells. Last week he was on the who's not section. Him and JC Escarra were both there because he was 9 for his last 49. Dylan already mentioned kind of that, little circulation issue that turned out to be nothing, thankfully, for him. But he changed his stance since coming back, since the month of July, and now he's batting .333, He's got 3 home runs, all coming in the last 3 games, 5 runs batted in. And you look at that number, 2 walks to 1 strikeout. That's big for the Yankees, not having too many strikeouts. That means you're putting the ball in play, and that's a good sign. So we start with Austin Wells. You've needed production from the catcher, and you think back to last year. When did Austin Wells really turn his season around? Around the same time. Paul O'Neill continues to say that every night on the broadcast. And you know what? For Yankees, you got to hope that that's the case and that this isn't just a little bit of a hot streak and then he's going to cool right back down. You hope, obviously, maybe not 3. You hope for 333 with 3 home runs, every 3 games. But you're also going to take the fact if he could just be better than what he's been this first half of the season, which has been rather disappointing in his first, real chance to take hold of that catcher position.
And I think holistically, he's going to be one of those guys that we really do have to judge at the end of the season, because when he's been going through his slumps, they have been big slumps. And when he's been hot, he's been one of the best hitters in the lineup. And I think that those kind of streaky hitters have become a thing of pretty commonality at this point of most Yankees ads over the past couple years. So I don't think it's a shock for people. I think a lot of people are patient with Wells because they just really like Wells as a personality, as a player. Hey, the Wells burrito, everything about the guy spells a New York Yankee kind of personality. And I think that's been why he's kind of just similarly to Volpe, but not as much, given such a long leash with this team. And if he continues to produce, and again, a guy like Paul O'Neill saying, he's on the cusp of something is a reassuring sign. So Wells has continued to feel like he's on one of those like brinks of a really, really nice month stretch or couple month stretch. And if it happens now, well, obviously, hopefully into and then out of the All-Star break, that would be a really nice sight for a guy who feels like he's enough of a fan favorite that everybody's rooting for him, and especially at the backstop, where last week we were waving the white flag saying they might have to make a move for somebody, especially a backup catcher. And, having not seen a guy we're going to talk about in a couple games, feels like right now more than ever this team needed Austin Wells, and it's a nice stint here for him. But again, want to keep stringing these together and not seeing the slumps be as big of slumps as they've been for him in the past.
As he pops one up right on cue as he's at the plate as we talk about him, and it's caught. But, now 0 for 2 on the day. But you don't worry about that because there's still plenty of the game left. It's still early. You go to Paul Goldschmidt, 9 for 23 since it turned July. That's 391. 5 doubles, 4 multi-hit games in the month of July. And this is a guy that, started off so hot, and they're all talking about what is Paul Goldschmidt right now. He's not that home run hitter that maybe the Yankees expected a little bit of, but he's getting on base. And what does getting on base do? It gets runs, especially with the way Paul Goldschmidt runs the bases. He's very smart on the base paths. He doesn't run into many outs, and he hustles, which, you still lack from a couple guys. But this is a guy in Paul Goldschmidt who you are happy right now to see turning it on, because we'll talk about it. You already hinted at him, Ben Rice, who we haven't seen in a couple of days. He's gone ice cold again. And you needed somebody at first base, and especially the Yankees consider that they have a log jam when you think first base and you think DH and you think throwing the outfield in there too. This is a situation where Goldschmidt could have lost first base if Rice got hot. He could have even lost first base if Cody Bellinger moved to first and you get Trent in the lineup every day or something along those lines to get guys that are hot in the lineup. But Goldschmidt's starting to get going again, and that's good to see, because the Yankees, that was the problem in the June swoon. They lost a lot of the production after really Jason Dominguez and Aaron Judge.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that. I think Goldschmidt has been one of those guys who's been so reliable all year that a slump of some semblance was inevitable for Goldie. But I think it was something that was said about him right at the start of the slump by Aaron Boone when he had a pretty good game of, this guy's just good. He's good at everything. He figures out how to put good plate appearances together. And even when he's going through a rough stretch, he just still doesn't feel like he's going through that big of a rough stretch. He's kind of the opposite of some of the streaky hitters of past for the Yankees, and kind of the example I just gave with Wells. Goldie has just been consistent, and right now going through a nice stretch. Feels like he's starting to find a rhythm again, coming out of that small slump he went through. So it's a welcome sight, and I think he's very deserving of being in the Who's Hot section this week.
Well, now we have to go on the Who's Not section of the week, and there's a name that we've had the conversation of plenty of times, so we'll get to him in a second. But we start with Ben Rice, 4 for his last 28, 2 runs batted in. That goes back to a 4-hit game against Cincinnati on June 24th. Look, we can have the conversation all the time about Ben Rice being one of the unluckiest hitters in baseball, and he makes plenty of contact and he just finds gloves. But at some point, you got to do something to start getting those, balls to fall in the outfield, between, the shortstop and third baseman, between, that little gap between the infield and outfield, whatever it is, or just powered over the wall. There's got to be something you can do, maybe try to go opposite field a little bit more against a shift, whatever the case is. There's got to be something that Ben Rice can change to really get going, because there's only so long. And we said this last week too. There's only so long you can be considered unlucky before you're just considered a bad hitter. And I really don't think Ben Rice is a bad hitter. I do think it's part unlucky, but I also think part of it right now is he's just cold and he's not hitting well. And it's probably in his mind that he's hit so well all year in terms of the expected averages and all that he should be doing better. And it probably weighs on him a bit if I had to guess, because I think it would. You should be batting 270 or whatever you should be batting, and instead you're down in the 220 area. It hurts, and it's got to not be easy for him. But at the end of the day, what we're watching with Ben Rice right now, it's not fun. And I do have to say, as much as I, would love to see him out there to try to break out of it, I'm glad that Aaron Boone trotted out the same lineup today as he did yesterday. And that's the first time since I believe it's games 4 and 5 of the season, since April, that he has done that, in which the Yankees put the same lineup out there back-to-back nights. And until, maybe Paul Goldschmidt needs a rest against a tough righty, I don't really see a reason that Ben Rice should get in, unless maybe he goes and catches for Austin Wells. And I think maybe that plays a factor in his struggles as well. He's a DH, a first baseman, and now he's getting back into learning all these pitchers again and trying to be a catcher. But the simple matter of fact is he's cold. He's not hot, as we like to put here. And he really needs to find something to get himself going before it starts to get to the point where he's just considered, maybe what we consider Oswald Peraza, which is a quadruple A player where you're stuck in purgatory between Scranton and the Yankees. You too good for triple A, but you're not good enough for the majors.
Jorge Polanco, whipping run around the foul pole. Schlittler just it was the exact same as the other home run. Just kind of left it over the plate. And I mean, one thing I'm already liking about this guy, gets really, really pissed off when he makes a mistake. I respect it. It's a very Cole-esque kind of perspective. But back to Rice, I didn't like that quadruple A comment there, because I feel like he's a guy who, was so pivotal at the start of the season that I like the perspective, actually. As long as he's healthy right now, Boone giving him a little bit of an extended rest, I think it's deserved. He's a guy that you've shuffled all over the lineup. You've thrown everywhere. Again, like I said, he's been stymied by being thrust all over the diamond, being thrust all over the lineup. And I feel like this was inevitable at some point. When he was on the cusp of being a who's not last week, and this week obviously landing himself in that territory. So I think it's a tough draw for Rice. It feels like he's always been in that tough draw category, as you said, with expected average and barrel rate being two of the highest categories where Rice has excelled this season. But you want to see proof in the pudding at some point, but I think there's enough of a basis for what Rice was able to do early in the season that I think Boone stymied his confidence, and now he's trying to build him back up with a little bit of rest. But that could also be the same thing that could be needed for somebody else.
I mean, I don't really want to have the conversation because we have it every week, but it's inexcusable at this point that Anthony Volpe's run out on that field every damn day. 3 for his last 30. That's in July. 6 for his last 52 over his last 15 games. At some point, you got to get the guy off his feet and give him some rest and get his head right. This is just ridiculous. And I understand the fact that he's a top prospect that you drafted, a homegrown guy from right around the corner. But you're a major league team, and you're trotting out a guy that continuously can't hit the damn baseball. And I don't really get frustrated like this too much, at least where I air out the grievances like this. But, I mean, every time you think he catches something, like when he has that home run over the weekend against the Mets, he's going to get going. And it's right back to the same thing every time. He's no better than if you're throwing Jorbit Vivas out there every day. In fact, I'd take that. Give Vivas some extended run at shortstop and see if he could do something. You have 5 games till the All-Star break. Oh, that counts today's game. So you have 4 games till the All-Star break. Why not give Vivas all 4? Give Volpe 4 days off and give him, the entire All-Star break because he lost any chance of going there. And just let him get his head right because it's clearly not screwed on right. And I don't mean that in a bad sense. I know he's still hustling. He's still good defensively. A lot of times you'll see guys hang their heads when they're doing this bad. He's still going out there every day, and he's the epitome of a New York Yankee, but he's not living up to what he needs to do, to the standards of being a major league hitter, right? And he's now over 1,500, I think it is, plate appearances in his Yankee career and his career in general. And he's not really anything great. I mean, we're looking at a guy that's batting 226 in his career now. And you and I have tried and tried again to reason with the Yankee fans calling for him to be traded, to be sent back down. I know we've mentioned, it's always a possibility to send him down to AAA to get his head right. It's never going to happen. But you need to at least put him on the bench for a couple days and just get him to the point where maybe go with Paul O'Neill, right? Maybe not even your own hitting coaches at this point, or go get Chicken Parm with Austin Wells, and maybe it flips this time around to get hot. Whatever the case is, this isn't working. This is extended period. This isn't a short period. This isn't July and the last 15 games. This is a season and a career-long problem at this point for Anthony Volpe, and it's a shame because I think we all hyped him up, and I think that plays part of it, that he's failing expectations. I think those expectations were unfair. So do you. We've talked about that before. But it's inexcusable that he's being run out there every day, and he's putting out 3 for his last 30, 6 for his last 52, and the stats just get worse the further you extend them.
I think it's going to take a second half of the season that is pretty much on par with some of the best we've seen from a shortstop in the American League and really in Major League Baseball in some time. He's going to have to go scorched earth on all his haters, all his doubters, everybody that's been against number 11, and pretty much do the exact opposite of what he's done in the first 1,500 plate appearances of his career. Needs to be consistent at bats, because I think the biggest misnomer in every Yankees fan's mind that the Yankees organization continues to fail to grasp. And I think we have seen guys hit a lot more consistently this year and not see as many guys after the torpedo incident try to just pimp home runs all the time. The biggest misnomer is that Yankees fans just want to see the ball fly out of the yard all the time. Yankees fans just want to win. They just want to win 28. Nobody gives a shit about watching a fireworks show if there's not going to be any substance behind it. And I think that's the biggest thing at this point. Volpe needs a complete restructuring over these next couple of days. I mean, I hope they give him, like you said, some extended run on the pine. Let him get his head right. Let him get his head right while everyone else is out in Atlanta or on vacation celebrating. Let's get him in there. Let's get him kind of really having a mental adjustment and really changing his entire swing profile at this point, because Volpe, I think, is still hustling down the base pass, still got a great attitude, still, again, epitome on and off the field of what you want from a Yankee. He works hard. He's got the great attitude. Outside of pelting Judge with a baseball the other day, outside of at the dish, he really can't do much wrong. He's a Gold Glover. But I think the biggest thing that frustrates every Yankee fan at this point is that they're waiting for the breakthrough from Volpe. But for 1,500 plate appearances, we've been waiting for the breakthrough from Volpe. And he had a couple nice moments in October, and he had a couple nice moments last April and May. But put it together. That's all we want to see. We're in Volpe's corner. I think most Yankees fans are in Volpe's corner. You want to see him put it together, but give him some time off. I mean, if this continues after the All-Star break and this continues longer and into the offseason, Anthony Volpe might not have a guaranteed spot on this roster next year. Fans, and there's still a lot of Yankee faithful that'll want to clamor to see another year, and they could be the next year, but he hasn't exactly locked that short spot up for next year. So I think there's a lot to unravel with Anthony Volpe, and this is why it's become such a conversation in the past couple weeks. But I think Anthony Volpe is really, really, really going to need to get a complete swing profile adjustment going into this and coming out of this All-Star break.
Today is the 92nd game of the season for the Yankees. Today is the 92nd game that Anthony Volpe appears in. He's not Aaron Judge. That's what I have to say about that number. And he's going to set a career high in runs batted in. He's at 48. His career high is 60. He's on pace to have a career high in walks and his best on base percentage, but it's still just, it leaves so much to be wanted and desired from Volpe. We move on from that conversation because we've had it a lot.
And probably will continue to.
It probably will continue to, which, we obviously don't want to. We hope at some point we can put them on the who's hot for the Yankees. We go to the pinstripe panic meter, which the last couple of weeks has been reserved for pitching. But we decided today to look at the AL East standings. The Yankees, since we were last here and last filmed, lost first place in the AL East to the Toronto Blue Jays, who did lose today, so their 10-game winning streak comes to an end. You see them at 54-39. Yankees 50-41. The Rays right behind them, but the Rays 3-7 or 2-8 in their last 10. Red Sox are hot. They're 7-3 in their last 10, and there's Baltimore sitting in the basement. Dylan, I want your number 1 through 10 to one decimal spot. Your panic meter on the fact that the AL East has just become really more competitive. I mean, it all came from the June swoon. The Yankees had a nice, really large lead. They lost it. They're now, I believe it's 4 games back or 3.5. Let me pull it up. They are, and the Wi-Fi, nope, they're 3 games back. They could be 2.5 by the end of the day, but Tampa's 1 game behind them, and the Red Sox are 1 game behind them. So you look at that. Where's your panic sitting in the fact that there's 4 AL East teams right now that are putting themselves in contention for the playoffs, and the fact that the Yankees have not fared well against those teams this year?
That's the only reason this panic is even remotely high. I think I'm going to go like a 4 or 5. It's not high at really that much at all, but because of, how they've competed in the division, because you're coming off a 4-game sweep by the Blue Jays that had everybody in uproar because of what they did on Sportsnet and then K's rebuttal. But I don't want to support K in here because the Sportsnet crew was just having some fun. But K was kind of right, though, because the Blue Jays haven't exactly looked like, in terms of run differential and even in how their roster's built, a first-place team. The Rays have not. Heck, they're playing at the Yankees spring training field. The Red Sox traded their star player. They're letting the kids get an extended run this season, and I hope, because I love to see young players dominate in this game. I don't love it when they're Boston Red Sox, but you hope that, these guys settle in and they're good enough to make the Red Sox a wild card team and make a really competitive run. And, the O's were kind of in that same spot, and we're the top dog of this division at a point. So I'm not super panicked because it feels like right now, especially the Blue Jays and the Red Sox are getting hot heading into the break. I mean, the Blue Jays have been one of the best teams in baseball in this last stretch, but the Yankees are coming off, and you said it perfectly, the classic June swoon. But yet they're only that far back in the division. They're still right in the mix of things after one of the worst stretches of baseball we've seen from the Yankees in some time, and really where it felt like nothing could go right, and yet they're still right on the cusp of first place. I'm not really panicked. 4.5, if that, just because they've struggled against interdivision competition. But holistically, I still think the Yankees are the favorite to win the American League East, and I still think they're the best team in this division this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it a couple extra points, which I tend to do. Panic a little bit more than you, as Schlittler is now through 5, so he can pick up the win in his first start. But for me, I'll go the 5. I'll go an average panic here in the fact that they're 10-16 against the AL East. That is the worst record against in-division opponents in the American League East. The Blue Jays are 16-3, so are the Red Sox. Tampa's 13-3, so is Baltimore. The only team with a record sub 500 is the Yankees. Yeah, they're 3 games back, which isn't bad. Tampa, a game behind them, but Tampa has kind of been just as cool as the Yankees lately. I correct myself from earlier. They are the same over the last 10 as the Yankees, and it's the Red Sox who are 8-2 over their last 10. So, I mean, I'm not fully concerned here, especially with the way things have trended the last 2 nights for the Yankees, or last 2 games with the Yankees, and then here tonight, where at this point, as we record this, they are in the lead. And on top of that, you got to look at the wild card. The wild card is run by the American League East, except for the Mariners, who have that 3rd place spot. There is a chance there are 4 American League East teams in the postseason, and where that comes from is the schedule change a couple years ago where you play less games against your division, which I still disagree with, but not a conversation for tonight. That'll be an off-season conversation. But, I mean, the Yankees are the top wild card. Tampa's behind them, and Seattle is that 3rd spot with Boston trailing. Texas is starting to get a little bit back on track. Kansas City under 500 to this point as well. But, I mean, the Yankees went to the World Series last year. There's no reason that they can't turn it on in the month of July and August and September and go on the run. So I'm not overly concerned just yet, although I think we can both say what they put out in Toronto was a rather pathetic performance, getting swept over those four. So we end the show, as we have the last couple of weeks, with the All-Star update. The Yankees heading to Atlanta. Just a trio of Yankees heading down there. Aaron Judge will be the right fielder. Max Fried will be a pitcher. He will not start the game. I don't believe they've announced the starter, so actually let me not. No, it is Scooble. Okay,
well, I don't think they've announced it, but
no,
I mean,
I don't think it's announced just yet. But it looks like Tariq Skubal will get the start for Aaron Boone and the American League, and then Jazz Chisholm, the reserve second baseman, who Aaron Boone might play at third for the game just for the fun of it. He will be the third Yankee going down there. Dylan, it's kind of actually a little unexpected. I think you and I saw maybe Cody Bellinger going as the third for the Yankees. And, there's plenty of people saying he got robbed of his flowers and going down there by Julio Rodriguez. But that's besides the point here. I don't think we really saw Jazz going, but I think we're both really glad to see Jazz going because he's more than deserving.
And Jazz is going to make it more of a fun time, and he's going to bring the excitement and the vibes. I mean, that's a guy that didn't say it today, but I mean, he needs to be locked up to a long-term contract for all they put him through this season, and for all he's kept a smile on his face, positive attitude. That guy has been one of the best additions to this team at the deadline in the past couple of years, maybe the past half a decade. So first off, Jazz needs an extension. Needed it yesterday.
So does Cody, but
it'll come in the offseason. Well, off-season logjam is going to be, or off-season outfield logjam is going to be a fun topic. Maybe mid-season if we talk about it next week. But next week, obviously, All-Star game. Excited to see Jazz, Judge, and Fried out there. I think Weaver being hurt, hitting his rough stretch the past couple weeks, hurt him. Goldie, Rice, again, cold at the worst time. Felt like those are guys who could have been in the conversation too. I mean, Goldie and Rice were runners-up for the respective starting positions. So I think that definitely is a less than expected turnout for the Yankees, but, still going to be excited to watch. Home Run Derby looks stacked. I mean, this is looking like outside of, a Soto, a Judge, and Alonso, about the best Derby you could start to bring together. You've got Big Dumper, you've got Acuna, you've got O'Neal Cruz. I think Jazz at this point would make the most sense. Especially now Acuna, maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't in the Derby. I like the lineup. I think this could be a really, really fun lineup.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week with the personalities that you could put on display here. And like, think about the Nationals. It's been such a bad year for them, and they get to watch, James Wood go at it. Same thing with Pittsburgh. I mean, O'Neal Cruz has had a tumultuous tenure that has gotten called out by many people in the Pittsburgh, area for kind of his, at times lack of hustle and whatnot. And Cal Raleigh, obviously leading the league in home runs, got one off of Jeff Hartlib last night. I'll digress and not get into the point I was going to make. I mean, they always say Aaron Judge is stat padding, so that's got to count too, right? Anyway, Ronald Acuna, the hometown guy, you hope to see him healthy and good to go. And Junior Caminero, he should be a fun one as well. There's still spots open. Jazz openly said he wanted to do it. You don't get that often. You don't get high-profile names that want to do it anymore. So if I'm the MLB, I should have had a call into Jazz at this point and said, hey, you know what, Jazz, let's get you on there and let's get you going and let's make it a fun time. Obviously, Aaron Judge won and then kind of fell off at the end of his rookie year. Giancarlo has won it as well. That was a fun derby when the two of them went at it. But it should be a fun week. All in all, I think a lot of Yankees could use the rest too. We talked about some of them, and obviously it gives some time for the injured guys to come back. As well as we wrap up the show, Dylan, you got the rest of today's game against the Mariners. You've got tomorrow against the Mariners and 3 against the Cubs, before we're back here probably same day next week. Any thoughts as we sign off?
It's a big stretch, as much as it doesn't seem like it's that big of a stretch. I think you need to go in with momentum and come out with the same tone. This June swoon that's leaked into early July is going to be remembered very, very sorely regardless, but I think there's still a good opportunity here to run out through the finish line through the first half of the season, have a nice break, everybody do their respective time off, especially a guy like Anthony Volpe we just talked about, much needed, and I think then you pick things up and go right into deadline talk again and see who joins this team, because it's inevitable that there's going to be some fresh faces and hopefully some high profile names. This is not a team that's that far off, but they need to go into the break with some serious momentum, and then we go from there. And I think next week's episode is going to be a big "where do we go from here" conversation.
And what could happen between now and next week's episode is still, I mean,
Jazz is going to win the home run derby. Judge is going to pick 3 homers in the All-Star game. That's what's going to happen.
All I'm going to say is that you and I have this thing when Jack Curry speaks, we listen. And Jack Curry said, stay tuned at the end of one of his tweets regarding what Brian Cashman had said earlier today about going out, getting third baseman, getting a reliever. So maybe it's imminent. We saw Everson Pereira and Brian De La Cruz get pulled or out of the lineup yesterday. They were out of it again today. Now they're saying it's because Pereira was sick and De La Cruz has an oblique, something, just trying to get some rest. I don't know. It's weird that two of the most talked about Yankees when it comes to that being traded are being, kind of left out, maybe to avoid any serious injury prior to the deadline. My last point is keep Jason Dominguez in the leadoff spot. I know he went 0 for 5 yesterday, but he's 2 for 3 today. He's finding his rhythm. The Yankees seemingly have found a structure to the lineup that is working. I'm not going to say they found a lineup that's working because there's still a couple holes that we discussed here, but they have started to find the structure that has gotten this lineup going. Dominguez leading off, Judge behind him, and it should be, if you can keep that going, it will be a fun end. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X, whatever you call it, at Bomber Boys Pod. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you are most likely watching this at the Bomber Boys Podcast. Follow us on Spotify for the audio version, Bomber Boys Podcast as well. For Dylan Price, I'm Justin Show. We'll see you next week for the All-Star break and the kind of unofficial halfway point of the season to break down what's gone on for the Yankees and what's still to come. We'll see you next time on Bomber Boys.